Mr. Stone.
Mr. President, I'm honored.
Nice to see you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome to Kazakhstan.
Я сижу с лидером этого народа.
There's a mystical aspect to this golden man.
Мы потомки саков и гунов, и наша родословная идет оттуда.
Gentlemen, I would like to welcome you to our studio, the studio of the Khabar agency. It's a great honor for us, and this meeting takes place right after the premiere. Surely you showed this film to the first president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev. I would like to know his reaction. What did he say after watching this film?
We showed him the 2-hour version yesterday in the afternoon, and I sat next to him, and he enjoyed it very much. He was laughing and not crying, but he was happy that his vision of this country was realized on film. I think he was very pleased, and he thanked us all, and we spent some time afterward having tea and talking. And it's the third time I've met the president, and I find him to be very genial, charming, a good host.
I'd say that I share with the first president some dissatisfaction because, after all, we could say some things differently. For my part, as a director, I think we could have done even better. But this is done. This child no longer belongs to us. That's it. It is already born, it is already there. And it goes on with its life.
Все, оно уже рождено, оно уже такое, оно есть, и оно идет дальше своей жизнью.
Igor, were you at the screening as well? Yes, we wanted to show, first of all, to the world audience what Kazakhstan is, its people. Show your country more vividly. I hope we succeeded. We spent so many months here. We discovered Kazakhstan for ourselves, a country that we want to visit again and again.
Красивый Казахстан и страну, в которую хочется приезжать.
Let's take a quick look at the story behind this film. Why did you decide to make a film specifically about Nursultan Nazarbayev? Why were you interested in him? What motivated you to shoot a film about the first president?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Kazakhstan's a very little known country. Big country, but not much known in the West. I was curious. I did a series on Mr. Putin. And, you know, Kazakhstan's a very important geopolitical center of Eurasia between China and Russia, and the balance of power is very important. I think Eurasia represents, to me, very much the future of the universe. I see Kazakhstan right at the center of magnetic pole between East and West. I mean, China and Russia, big countries on both sides, both very important for the future. And here's Kazakhstan. And Mr. Nazarbayev, and your president, they play a role in keeping the peace, keeping a balance, not only between Russia and China, but between the United States and Russia, and the United States and China. The three countries of the world, between them can achieve, I hope, a lasting peace.
I want to add that the geopolitical balance of all three powers is a very important thing for Oliver, for us, because this can preserve peace. Peace and harmony, because if there is no balance, if one dominates, then there will be slavery, violence, war. And the balance allows you to preserve peace. Therefore, your president, who maintains the balance, is a figure of world importance.
Поддерживатель баланса – это фигура мирового значения.
Yes, we wanted to show his key value in this film. There are episodes where we talk about the Minsk agreements. We talk about rather serious political issues, as well as give wishes. The situation with the Russian plane that was shot down by a Turkish plane in Turkey, situations with the president of Kyrgyzstan. I also want to say that this film, which was presented today, this is a cinema version. There are 8 episodes, ranging from the 36 minutes to an hour.
8 эпизодов, 8 серий, от 36 до часа.
Is this the full version? There are 8 episodes and there is a film. This is a future documentary, we call it that way. This is a documentary film and 8 episodes of a documentary series. That is, there will also be an 8-episode series in addition to the film. This all makes up this project, which is called Kazakh History of the Golden Man. Will our audience have the chance to see it?
Для
In the series, we tried to show in more detail what we couldn't show in the film. Because with the film, we had the time limit, 2 hours. Before the start of the project, have you been to Kazakhstan? What did you know about it? Before Igor and I came here in 2019, I was in Kazakhstan in 1993. You have just undergone a monetary reform. It was a very difficult time. Why did you come? I was driving to a friend in Almaty in November. It was the stupidest decision, to go by car in 1993 through the entire Kazakhstan. I drove from Dnepropetrovsk, then to Aktobe. Then we went further south, past the Aral Sea. And then I think in Qazlarda we got stuck. We just sat there for 3 hours. We chose a summer road instead of a winter one. In general, I had the impression that this is some kind of a wild place, very wild. And now, when you come and see Nur Sultan, you see these skyscrapers. It's a completely different country, and people are different too. We talk about this in the film. Together with the viewer, we walk the path from rather difficult times to the present time. We show a contrast, what Kazakhstan was like once, what it has become now. Where did the Kazakhs come from? The main character says that many thought that after the October Revolution, this is, by the way, an important place. I want to emphasize that for now, let's not reveal everything. Let the people judge for themselves. But there is, it seems to me, a kind of a global message, including for the Kazakh people. For the rest of the world, this picture was made in English. It was made in Russian for Kazakhstan, for Russia, for the Russian-speaking countries of the CIS. And for the rest, it is in English. How did your opinion about Kazakhstan, about the first president, change during the work on this film?
I didn't have an opinion, so nothing changed. But what I was impressed with Mr. Nazarbayev was that he was a wise elder statesman. You sensed that he was a tribal leader, almost like an old chieftain.
Actually, there were many new points about Scythian culture for me, I'd say. To be honest, I didn't know much about Scythians' culture before I started. My favorite poem back in high school was The Scythians by Alexander Blok. Yes, we are the Scythians. Yes, we are Asians. But the fact that we are actually descendants of the Scythians. Indeed, there was a belief that the Scythians had gone and left no one behind. This belief seemed completely wrong. We are talking about it on the show. There is scientific evidence that the maximum genetic match to the Scythian gene line is in places where the mounds are. But there are mounds all over your country. So who are you then? Are you Scythians? Who are the Ukrainians then? Who are the lower Volga region then? And the whole Caucasus, all the way to Mongolia. It all used to be a huge civilization, and we are their descendants. What is the message here? That we're all descended from Adam and Eve. That's it. We all come from the same parents. So why should we be at enmity when we all are related? The film is very informative. I've also made quite a lot of discoveries for myself by watching your film. But the title itself, which is Kazakh History of the Golden Man, is quite ambiguous. What meaning did you put into it?
Вот какой смысл вы сами заложили в название этого фильма?
This is probably a question for me too, because we chose this name together. The way the word Kazakhstan is spelled consists of the word Kazakh, but there is also a word that is spelled very similarly in Russian, a Cossack, which means a free man. The notion of the Kazakh is our first and most important message.
От этого же слова, что имеет значение свободный человек. Раз. То есть это первый месседж. То есть, во-первых, это самый главный казах. Вот он.
Secondly, it's a concept of a free man. Thirdly, it's an allegory of the golden man, which is more understandable in the East. Not many people know who the golden people that you find all over the country were. So we are talking about this in the film. About the history of the golden man, I mean. What's the allegory here? It's that only the rulers were golden people. They were buried with such honors in the mounds because they brought good to the people. And those who did that were called golden men or golden warriors. But we prefer a more peaceful name. That is the golden man instead of the golden warrior. Yeah.
Предпочитаем более мирное название «Золотой человек» вместо «Золотого воина». Ну вот, собственно, я ответил.
So, was that your suggestion as a film director? And what did the producers put into meaning when they agreed on the title on this film?
I think what Igor was after was to try to understand the culture, the thinking of this people here. For us, it's a very exotic place. we don't know the Kazakh culture. So I think he is showing both anthropology and politics, going back into the past, the golden man, and it's, you see, there's more than, it's not just, I think in the movie we say Russia, when it controlled Kazakhstan, blotted out its history. It's, as far as the Russians were concerned, Kazakh history started in 1917, which is not true. The history goes back centuries to the times when the Greeks were going east. We heard about the Scythians. We heard about the tribes of the east.
Да, и это сработало.
Do you think this story will be of interest in other countries? Yes, I think it will. In fact, my greatest fear was that we would do a somewhat regional scale project, but it was only until we heard the stories that Nursultan Nazarbayev told us. I realized that we are actually dealing with a global history. We are talking about the reasons for the collapse of the Soviet Union and the role of the individual in that. We are talking about attitudes towards nuclear weapons. Today, nuclear weapons must scare everyone. But they have ceased to scare the whole world, especially young people. However, we remember how it really was and how scary it is. For example, for my first profession, I learned how to build a rocket engines, and I know how destructive it is.
И я знаю, насколько это разрушительно. И вот в чем
And this is our small mission. We absolutely coincide with Nursultan Nazarbayev in the opinion that this thing, and its very existence, endangers life on this earth. It's just those mistakes, some uncontrolled conflicts that can lead to a nuclear collision, are a terrible danger that we have settled ourselves with. We've been living with it for 70 years. Young people today have absolutely no idea what this is. But millions of people have suffered from nuclear tests, nuclear weapons at the Semipalatinsk test site. I was there. I was 200 meters from the epicenter where 5 charges were detonated. One of them was a hybrid and 4 nuclear ones, including the first Jo-1 bomb, as it is called in the West, or Stalin's rocket engine. And this is very impressive. It's something that we really need to talk about.
Это на самом деле, это надо рассказывать.
What's it like inside when you fly over the testing area? When we landed and turned off the engines, the first words of our helicopter pilot were, "The death was here." So, of course, it's soul-stirring. Devices start to beep, and the closer you get, the louder and louder they become. And also, the local people who were like, "We've finished working and are going to deactivate." And in the meantime, we saw 2 cars whistling past us and made a lot of dust. We were like, "What is this?" And these were the locals who drove there because the road is shorter. I think this project is bound to have a long and successful life. Why do you think it would be interesting to other countries? First of all, we are making a film that is true. And why can it be described like this? We had absolutely no restrictions from start to finish. We had total freedom. We were asking the questions that we wanted to ask. You and the audience saw it at the premiere today. Kazakhstan will show it on big screens. We had the opportunity to visit all regions, and we just looked at what we wanted regardless of anyone's expectations. I think that everything you will see on the screen looks very true. The topics raised in the film are not only regional, but also global. I think that in our film, many people will finally hear and see the answers to the questions they didn't know before. Moreover, we have already talked about this today. It is how fortunate Kazakhstan is to have had a leader like that. The people had such a thorny path. At a certain point, a leader came along, built a country from scratch, and today he is handing it over.
Я вот здесь вот подхвачу, потому что, знаете, я думаю, что извините, пожалуйста, Игорек, вот просто хотел сказать, что...
Kazakhstan got lucky with its leader. The Ukrainians are not so lucky. Ukrainian is my first nationality. I was born in the Soviet Union. I grew up in Ukraine. And this change is democratic. Well, we understand how it was done democratically. The constant change of power in Ukraine has led to a complete destruction of the economy, impoverishment of people, population decline, and loss of sovereignty. This is my personal opinion. It is not in the film.
Я не буду взять, это мое личное мнение, а его в фильме нет. Это мое личное мнение.
Nursultan Abishevich is the author of peace agreements, the person who came up with this construction that was implemented in detail in his hometown. Merkel just could not come that far. She had many things to do. This shows that, in fact, democracy is the best way of the governments. Indeed, actually, people sometimes need to be protected. That is what the state made for. That is the question of finding new forms of governance.
Ведь на самом деле иногда людей надо защищать от людей, и для этого нужно государство. То есть вопрос поиска новых форм управления.
This is the issue that Nursultan Nazarbayev considers is on the agenda. Especially now, during the pandemic, it is not clear how the post-COVID economy will recover. There will be a new configuration of the global balance of power, so that new forms of governance will be searched. I absolutely agree with you that we got lucky with our leader, because once I communicated with my friends in Kiev, there was a small feast. I heard such an interesting thought from them. If we had such a leader, they said, then Ukraine would have been in Europe a long time ago, and we would never have a conflict with Russia. I think that the Kazakhs did something really important, for which Allah gave you such a leader. I think that, when many people were exiled here, you welcomed everyone. There was always a place for exiles. You have always taken care of them. Well, he sees everything. The golden person was sent, who is able to bless the people.
Это же видно сверху, правильно? И за это послан золотой человек, который способен принести благо народу.
You mean this is the response by the Almighty? I think that this is the response for such an attitude towards those who were exiled or worse, from Dostoevsky and through all the Stalinist repressions. You accepted everyone. That is why you became a multinational country. We tried to figure it out.
Национальной страной. Мы попытались в этом разобраться.
You are right, Igor. I have a question for Mr. Oливер Стоун. In one of your interviews, you said, I literally quote, that you are striving for the light and you are in search of the truth. What truth did you find in Kazakhstan?
I cannot claim to have found the truth about Kazakhstan. It would require a philosopher to spend more time here. I don't know the people and I don't speak the language, so it would be presumptuous of me. But I do think Igor has pointed out a huge difference between Kazakhstan and Ukraine, because both were very prominent members of the Soviet Union, both very strong party chiefs, Kravchuk in Ukraine and Nazarbayev here in Kazakhstan. What happened? Kravchuk disappears and a so-called democratic, pro-Western regime takes power in Ukraine. It goes back and forth, and then they have, in 2003, the Orange Revolution, and then they have another revolution in 2013, which has been a disaster for Ukraine. Stupid, and it was controlled by CIA and controlled by American money that was put in to control the country. And the same thing would have happened in Kazakhstan if Mr. Nazarbayev had been weaker, had not been the person that he is. He is aware of international, how do you say, international manipulation. And he understands China has interests, Russia has interests, America has interests. But he was able to balance all those interests. And not only that, he is a friend of Gorbachev too. He goes to Moscow, and we see him in the documentary how he handles a very treacherous situation, because Kravchuk and Yeltsin are working to get rid of Gorbachev. And he says, no, I'm not going to be on that train. He doesn't join them. He doesn't want to destabilize the Soviet Union.
I can say what Oliver just said. I feel sorry. I feel sorry for the Soviet people who suffered from this. This is actually a sincere feeling. If you remember this film, The Untold History of America, there is a whole episode about this case. In the Western world, this is absolutely perceived and not known, or absolutely not perceived. But what is happening in the West now, especially in America, worries me very much, as a person who lived in the collapse of the Soviet Union, because I see the same signs of the division of society, misunderstanding and rejection. The desire to change something very much, the desire to change very strongly and quickly usually leads to the collapse of the state and the disintegration, respectively, of major empires, and one of them is the United States. This is also a problem. The new order that is now being formed, the global balance of power, is not the same as it was in Soviet times. There were only two superpowers. Now there are three of them. Kazakhstan is very important here. Therefore, the fact that the leader of Kazakhstan understands the very essence of the principle of how to balance stronger forces is a great blessing.
Более сильные силы, чем ты. Это большое благословение.
So you're saying that the United States can repeat the fate of the Soviet Union? I think that we can even witness this case. We can see the collapse of two great powers, the Soviet Union and America. I really would not like this. I really don't want to. I live in America. My children live there. It is my home. I even try to do something to prevent this from happening, but this cannot be ruled out. What about you? Do you agree with this version that the United States can repeat the fate of the Soviet Union?
I wonder about that because when Gorbachev went down, I thought that it's possible the same thing will happen to the USA within 30 years. I said that to myself, 30 years. And now it's about 30 years. It's about 30 years. And it's an interesting question. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer but there's something very wrong in my country when an election for president costs $14 billion to become elected president. The campaign cost $14 billion. Do you know how much money that is? It's inconceivable. When we talk about democracy, we're really talking about money. And money is not the answer. You have to have spirit, you have to have heart to keep a country together. Heart. And I don't know. America is very divided. A lot of people don't like Biden, and a lot of people like him. So again, I worry about civil war, which is something I saw as far back as Vietnam. America has always been two countries, in a sense, fighting with each other. Right wing, left wing, pro-war. The war issue divides. The war issue is no longer an issue in America, and that worries me. In the old days, there used to be a coalition against war, against Vietnam, for example. But that has changed. Now, the left and the right, both are pro-war factions in the United States. America is a very aggressive country, very aggressive. Mr. Trump was talking all kinds of nuclear first strike issues.
I think that the coalition for peace still exists. It is in front of you. I believe that one person can be heard. He or she can change anything. You just have to not be afraid to say it out loud, not be afraid to say to everyone, observe these principles. I am also in this coalition. I am for the idea that this madness does not hit the head of the people. I am for the principles that it is better to trade instead of fight. It is better to marry each other, as it was during the Scythians, as it was during the Silk Road. Be friends, be in love.
Как это было во время скифов, как это было во время шелкового пути. Дружить, любить.
Главный герой.
Есть много...
Oliver asked a very important question. We have a common enemy, CO2, the carbon genocide that is heating up the planet. We are actually on a very bad pace. The arms race is heating up the planet even more. And a lot of money is being spent on this matter.
Разогрев планеты еще больше, причем огромные деньги тратятся на это дело.
Mr. Oliver said that the future is Eurasia. A new kind of configuration will be built in this particular region, the US, Russia, and China. What is the role of Kazakhstan here?
Россия, Китай. Вот здесь роль Казахстана вы как отводите? Какую?
Oh, yeah. Ha, 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 ha. I wish you were asking me all these questions. Who knows the future? As Igor was saying, the primary objective right now for the world, for China, US, Russia, Kazakhstan, is carbon dioxide emissions, CO2, carbon dioxide. This is choking us, strangling the planet. At this rate, by 2050, we are going to have a miserable life. It's going to be worse. Because energy has to be clean energy. This is the most important point. If the United States were not fighting China and we're not fighting Russia, it would make a partnership like we used to have for space, a partnership to go into space, a partnership to clean up our energy systems all across the world. China is a big issue. Coal, 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 coal. Get rid of coal. Get rid of gas, because gas is also, methane is a very dangerous poison for the atmosphere. I believe very strongly in nuclear energy. I believe in it. I believe also in renewables, wind, hydrogen.
Помните песню Леннона «Imagine»?
Да.
Ну вот это вот то, о чем он говорит.
Do you remember Lennon's song, Imagine? This is what he is talking about now. Imagine. The power of imagination can change a thing. Your city, where we are sitting now, is beautiful. This is the power of the imagination of one person. But this is not the same city. We have a city in the series. We show foreign diplomats who arrived during the Virgin Lands in Tselenograd. As far as I know, Nursultan Nazarbayev had no money when they started building. There was a huge, huge uncertainty and a great desire to do it. This uncertainty was overcome by the power of imagination. So, imagine. This can change a thing, material. Interestingly, did his associates support him? Well, of course they didn't. Where to get money from? There was no money to pay pension. What to do? And his wife kept saying the same thing. What are you doing, Nursultan? I just haven't been sleeping. I was in deep thoughts. I saw my mother in a dream and she said, make decisions, everything will be fine. It's a very informative film which covers a lot of topics. How did you choose the themes? Where did you place the emphasis on? What aspects of this film, in your opinion, are the strongest?
Проекта самый сильный, на ваш взгляд? Это вопрос как режиссеру.
Да.
Потом мы послушаем мнение продюсеров.
This all took actually 19 months, and before that, we started the project in 2015. Since 2015, we have been trying to get the opportunity.
Пытались получить возможность.
Who did initiate it anyway? It was our initiative. We tried to gain access. You can't make a film without being interviewed, tell a story. From my point of view, it is better for the leader of this country to tell the story of his country. Therefore, everything coincided in 2019.
Своей страны может лидер этой страны, поэтому вот здесь все как раз и совпало в 19-м, и мы сделали эту картину.
How did we do it? How was it structured? I think it worked, by the way. We filmed 8 episodes. We have set the topics, we got answers, we assembled the videos. They asked questions, edited them, and asked more questions. Then we realized that we've already had more than 4 episodes, as much as 8 episodes. There was more material than we needed. But from these 8 episodes, we combined the most dramatic parts and made a full-length feature film. And it worked out really well. Of course, there is some reversible timing. It's very difficult without them. In your opinion, what are his strengths?
That's up to you to decide. A movie, to me, the whole is what matters, and I think the whole works. I love the political sections with Gorbachev, particularly, and I love the interactions of President Nazarbayev. I love his daughter, Dariga, is in the movie too, and she speaks very eloquently for women in Kazakhstan.
It is shown in the film series. It's just presented in more detail. We show more facts that are essential. Moreover, I think the book will be born. When the interview with the Russian President Putin was released, there was material left because there was a lot of it. And Oliver wrote a book on this topic. Why? Because the experience of such conversations when people of this level are talking is valuable. You can have conversation at this level or at this, as it was in this film. The film's most important feature is that Nursultan Nazarbayev and Oliver Stone have a conversation in one place.
Это Нурсултан Назарбаев и Оливер Стоун в одном месте, в одном разговоре.
The appearance of his daughter is also the director's idea, isn't it?
режиссерская находка.
Но есть принципы драматургии.
There are certain principles of drama. It makes a person lively when you talk about emotions, about surrounding world. And there is a drama, a dramaturgic story. This is the best. But the story of Дарига Назарбаева itself is very interesting.
Да, это
Она искренняя, это эмоциональная часть.
режиссерская, конечно. Но сама история Дариги Нурсултановны очень интересна.
Да, Игорь, на ваш взгляд,
сам
да,
фильм очень...
The film itself is very truthful. We lived through it. I will especially remember this film for a lifetime. Because last year I got really sick. I was on ventilator for 6 days in Nur-Sultan.
Да, он ковидом заболел во время 6 дней пролежал в реанимации.
Был на ЭВЛ 6 дней.
Нур-Султане.
Да, в Нур-Султане, и хочу пользоваться...
I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely thank all the doctors who saved me. No one asked who I am, where I came from. It didn't matter. Nur-Sultan is my second homeland. The city doctors saved me. When I was brought to the ward from the intensive care unit, 2 Kazakhs did not ask where I came from. What? How? They spoon-fed me for 4 days until I got to my feet. I'm deeply grateful to all doctors in this difficult time.
А я теперь вот козы полюбил, и шубат, и все, знаете, даже запрещено.
А сам фильм, на мой взгляд...
And the film itself reflects huge global issues which, in my opinion, weren't shown in such a way before. People wondered why Nursultan Nazarbayev didn't take part in the Belovezha Accords. 3 leaders gathered and there was a sincere story why he was not there. And he tells why he did not come there and explains that this decision was correct. When we show this story about the Belovezha Accords, we witness the main hero's sincerity. It will be interesting for our viewer. The Semipalatinsk test site, the nuclear deal, we think that the film turned out to be interesting. We reviewed different themes. For us, every topic was important.
Мы как просмотрели достаточно много, для нас каждая тема важна. И, на мой взгляд, этот фильм будет...
In my opinion, this film will be popular, especially among the international community. People from across the world will discover your country. They will have a different view of the country. I'm sure that people will come here and see the country with their own eyes. It would be better if they come with money, with investments, I mean. Not only to spend money, but also to invest, because there is a good platform for this business here. When I watched the film, I realized that there were enough healthy debates. Have you asked all the sensitive issues?
Well, we got into the human rights issue, of course, because the West always likes to nail strong men in the East with this question of human rights. And we pushed, I pushed, and I don't know the answers. All we have is his answers, and obviously he's been in power for, what, 40 years, or 30 years. But he's earned his place. He's earned his place. He was born up very poor, and he worked his way up through the factory. I understand he's a self-made man. Is it time for him to leave the stage? Of course. That's always a question. I asked this to Mr. Putin. Many people might say, oh, I'm tired of Nazarbayev, you know. And the new president is a wonderful man, but he's also been associated with Nazarbayev as a foreign minister. So, yeah, perhaps it's time for big change, new people. But remember, new people can be revolutionary in the wrong way, too. We don't want to have a Ukraine situation in Kazakhstan. The worst thing that you can happen is to let a bunch of NGOs in, which is what happened. Nazarbayev allowed the NGOs to come to Kazakhstan, and he realized after a few years that this was nonsense, that the NGOs were working to overthrow the government.
We showed a lot of things in our film. Ukraine is on fire in a struggle for power. We have studied this man in detail. He was here. A wonderful episode of the film. I will not reveal everything. When you have been making the film about Putin, did he recommend you to turn your attention to the personality of the Kazakh leader? Maybe he suggested you to consider him as the hero for the next film. Wasn't there such a dialogue by chance?
Это ваш герой следующего фильма. Случайно не было такого диалога?
No. He did not. Listen, that's our business. We decided to go ahead. I mean, there are other leading figures in the world. Certainly President Xi of China is an interesting figure. But this is not what I do for a living. This is, I make movies, but this is a fascinating story about the modern world. because Kazakhstan is at the, I associate it with the center, the new center of the world. Eurasia, Asia, and Europe. This is going to be the new balance. The wealth is here.
This is a question for two artists. You said we are lucky to have such a strong leader. Can you imagine a picture if we had a weak leader? What would happen to Kazakhstan?
Well, that's what I was saying. If you have a weak or indecisive leader, you're going to have problems because there are strong forces in the world which will be pulling at Kazakhstan to go to the east, to go to the west, to the oil. There's going to be so much pressure on Kazakhstan. You have to be like Nazarbayev. You need to a tribal, a kind of an authoritative leader who knows what's in the interest of this country. Not China, not Russia, not US.
Thank you.
Thank you.